All right, today we're diving into a really powerful idea from Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain is You. We're going to explore why, a lot of the time, the biggest thing standing in our way is us.
I mean, it's such a frustrating feeling, right? You know what you want, you might even know the steps to get there, but somehow you just feel stuck, kind of spinning your wheels. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone, and there's a really deep reason why that happens. Okay, so let's break down this central metaphor, because it's everything. The book argues that the biggest challenges we face usually aren't out there in the world, they're internal. This mountain, well, it's built out of our own fears, our past traumas, and all the little ways we've learned to cope. And climbing it, that's the real path to the life we actually want.
So how do we even build this mountain in the first place? Well, it often starts with something we all know, self-sabotage. But here's the thing. What if everything we think we know about it is actually backward? Let's just flip that idea on its head for a minute.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. We tend to beat ourselves up over self-sabotage, right? We think it's a character flaw, or we don't have enough willpower, or we must secretly hate ourselves. But the book says, no, that's the myth. The truth is, it's actually a really misguided attempt by our own minds to protect us. It's a coping mechanism that kicks in when there's some deep, unconscious need that isn't being met.
So it all boils down to this fundamental conflict. On one hand, your conscious mind is saying, yes, let's launch that business, let's get healthy, let's finish that degree. But on the other hand, your unconscious mind, driven by some hidden fear or need, is slamming on the brakes. And that creates this internal tug of war that just feels like you're fighting yourself.
This internal conflict brings us to the core revelation of the whole book. Every single self-sabotaging behavior we have is actually trying to satisfy some hidden, unmet need. And you know, there's a perfect story about the famous psychoanalyst Carl Jung that just nails this point.
So when Carl Jung was just a young boy, he really hated school. He just didn't fit in, he was miserable there, so consciously he knew he was supposed to go. But deep down, his unconscious mind had a totally different agenda.
Then, after a pretty minor accident, he started having these mysterious fainting spells. And guess what the result was? He got to stay home from school, the one place he was desperate to avoid. It's like his body found a loophole that his conscious mind couldn't. Years later, Jung looked back and had this aha moment. He realized these spells were his body's ingenious way of meeting his unconscious need, the need to escape the pain of school. It wasn't some random flaw, it was serving a function. His body literally created a problem to solve a deeper one. And this is the huge takeaway for all of us. Procrastinating on that huge project? Maybe that's feeding a need to avoid feeling vulnerable or fearing failure. Staying in a relationship you know is wrong? Maybe that's feeding a deep need to not be alone. The behavior itself isn't the real issue, it's just a symptom. Okay, so what does this actually look like in our day-to-day lives? Let's run through some of the most common ways these patterns tend to pop up.
See if any of these sound familiar. Perfectionism? That's not about having high standards. It's usually a deep fear of judgment that keeps you from ever calling something done. Always being busy? That's a great way to avoid what's really bothering you. Hitting an upper limit for happiness is when things get good and you suddenly do something to mess it up because deep down you don't feel you deserve it. And judging people who have what you want? Oh yeah, that's a classic defense mechanism to make you feel better about not going for it yourself.
All right, so it's one thing to see the patterns, but how in the world do we actually break them? Well, the book suggests we should stop fighting them and start listening to them instead. This is such a massive shift in perspective, it's a real game changer. That feeling of resistance, that little flash of jealousy, that overwhelming urge to procrastinate, that's not your enemy. It's a messenger. It's a guide pointing you directly to the wound that needs your attention and the need that's screaming to be met. So here's the actual work, the game plan. Instead of wrestling with the behavior, you get curious. Step 1, just notice it. Acknowledge the feeling without any judgment. Step 2, ask it a question. Hey, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to protect me from? And then step 3, dig for the root cause. Uncover the core need. Is it a need for safety, for control, for love? This is how you stop treating the symptoms and start healing the cause. And you know, when you start doing this work, your whole focus begins to shift. You start to realize that this journey isn't about conquering some big, scary external challenge. It's all about understanding your own internal world. I absolutely love this quote. It reminds us that real self-love isn't always bubble baths and positive affirmations. Sometimes it's having the raw courage to just admit, you know what, this isn't working for me anymore. It's about taking radical responsibility for your own happiness and deciding you deserve better than a life run by old, unconscious patterns.
And that brings us right to the summit of this whole idea. The ultimate goal isn't to bulldoze the mountain or pretend it doesn't exist. It's to develop the inner strength, the awareness, and the self-compassion to climb it. The real mastery you gain is over your own mind, your own reactions, your own inner world.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. If you were to stop fighting your mountain for just a moment and really listen to it, what is it trying to tell you? What deep, unmet need is finally asking for your attention? Because answering that question, that's where the real climb begins.